Hello and welcome to The Time of Telling. I'm Mark Walker. This podcast is based on my unpublished manuscript, The Time of Telling, John Starr Cook and the Word of One Tarot. So let's start off by recapping. John Cook danced his way around the world until he was struck down overnight with paralysis. He came home to the US and wound up hosting a Subud group that turned into a meditation group that channeled the Word of One Tarot through the Ouija board. The group's first session was held on the 17th of August 1962. Present were John, Rom, Dean and Nadine. I'm going to call them the Fab Four because that was also the night Ringo Starr joined the Beatles. Now, I'm writing these names on a whiteboard because there are numerous changes and this will help keep track of those name changes, that is. So we've got John, Rom, Dean, Nadine, and I'm also going to put in Rosalind, even though she's not present at the first session. So, Rosalind is not in the session, but she was part of the group. But she'd been unable to find a babysitter for her children, Christopher and Michaela. Hi Chris, hi Michaela. Rom and Nadine later became husband and wife, Bill and Nadine Eaton. Chris recalls Nadine looking like a movie star. Bill and Nadine had known John since the early days of Subud, around mid-1958. Likewise, Dean, Sharif Harris, had met John through his interest in Barpak, Subud and Latihan, an interest which has endured throughout Sharif's life. Hello, Sharif. John had met Rosalind in October 1960. She had a BA in Indian Studies from Sonoma University and was raised in Big Sur. But Rosalind wasn't there that first night. It was the Fab Four: John, Rom, Nadine and Dean. That night, for some reason, the letter G had been drawn in chalk on the black metal hood of the fireplace. For all of the subsequent sessions, a new letter or symbol was drawn. Now, surprisingly, John did not have a Ouija board in the house, or, if he did, he insisted that they create a new one, which was done on a piece of paper. Lacking a planchette, they used a silver dollar. So I'm going to recite from the manuscript now. The evening's meeting was informal, and no social and no Ouija board session had been planned. Usually the group met for meditation and had not previously experimented with the Ouija board when so foregathered. The Ouija experiment was suggested casually. No one expected anything in particular to come forth, yet once Rom and John, Rom had never touched a Ouija board in his life, had placed their finger lightly on the silver dollar planchette, a force seemed to gather in the room, and the table, as the board was called thereafter, began to sizzle with life. The letter G was pointed to over and over as energy built, and the planchette swirled in circles. The flow, once started, was unerring. There was no hesitation for a letter, and no mistakes were made. Nadine began to record the letters as Rom read them off aloud. The pace was so swift that no one could have followed the meaning if Nadine had not recorded. The silver dollar planchette went to G, 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 then J, 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 and again G, 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 and then the following. J is John, G is Dean, Now find mark of Rom and Nadine and Rosalind. Each has a mark on his head, lost but still there. H equals Rom, Nadine equals W and M, Nadine and Rosalind both dual signs. And Nadine responds, "But why? Explain." And the board, which later described itself as we responded, "Must you want to know? Not yet. Put together those things which have meaning, for now is the proper season to assemble those designs written on watery light, a rush into all phases of given directions. Volumes quickly open to place the key of the Nile at top of headwaters, where rest cat and dog and bird and shaft. Key is that key, J." And Nadine responds, "What is the real message to be received tonight? This is not it." We responds, "Loud is the sound of wind passing overhead. Softly passes the tread of the man who knows where he walks. Fearing not, he searches his motives and purity of purpose. He walks freely to that which is his destiny, for he is all men. John, keep hold to your vision. Stray not among the changelings." And there's a pause. Who questions? Be not timid, ask aright. So Nadine asks, "Are we to travel soon? If so, where to?" We responds, "It would not be fitting now. Later. Now is the time to ready self to be long lost hub." At this point, the group elected to take a coffee break. Nadine, the scribe, separated the letters into words and the words into sentences and read the message aloud. They all thought that the message and formulated new questions based upon the message. They all thought about the message and formulated new questions based upon the message. This was a pattern that would repeat as the sessions proceeded, a coffee break and a second round of questions for the board. After numerous sessions, the group became adept at separating out letters into words as they went, and there were less pauses. Now, I'm just including this very first session in its entirety so that we can get the flavour of the communication. For the remainder of the sessions I've summarised them. So the session resumes, and John asks, "What lies at the headwaters of the Nile?" We respond, "Fashioned by you to negate. Try to reverse flow. Wait one period, call upon a factor once lightly dismissed." "But how does one negate the Nile's flow?" asks John. We responds, "Bring all your faculties up to where your thinking and feeling function. Your faculties are not overworked. Function from that point below the highest and above the lowest. Split the difference." Then Dean asks, "What can I and should I do to further the progress of us all?" And we responds, "Fully fashioned it is. Bells proclaim the new man. Mirrored to them is grandeur of tall one with golden feathers of force, of power. Quality brought forth to tear us under, blue demon lurking in centre. You are given needed strength to do. Then Rom asks, "What significance does my moonstone ring have?" We responds, "Moonstone is badge of admission to School of Nautilus." "What is that?" asks Rom. We responds, "Make John tell." And at this point, the rhythm of the silver dollar planchette changed. A school of fools, full with lore of songs, of body rhythm, of mind, harmony, and spirit wholeness. "Good God," says John, "did I write that?" We responds, "Perhaps you overlook the import." John says, "Who and what is writing these messages?" We responds, "The writer is a silver dollar." Rom is being channeled through. He has been clear for the most part. Where there have been digressions, we have not bothered to correct them. And that was the end of the first session. This first session had brought forth an intriguing set of assertions and advice from a seeming entity which later identified itself as we. The board itself would later be referred to by the group as the We-G board. The 4 participants, and Rosalind, who was not present but was mentioned by name, spent the next several days pondering the mysteries that had been placed on the table. 2 weeks later, the 4 reconvened to conduct a second We-G session. They were seeking some clarity to the issues that had arisen, but they came away with more assertions and advice and more questions. There were clues given to the participants, but these clues would only be illumined in the weeks and months to come, like an ongoing treasure hunt. For the third session, 2 visitors participated. There was further information received concerning ancient Egypt and, for the first time, the royal maze. This was the first mention by name of one of what would become known as the New Books. After that third session, Nadine sang the Bob Dylan song Blowin' in the Wind, changing it to "The answer, my friend, is written on the wind. The answer is written on the wind." This was in response to the following from We. "Written on the wind, in the above and below, are the signs to be read by the knowing heart." Time and again in the months ahead, as the sessions went on, Nadine lent her voice to this version of the song, and it became somewhat of a theme song for the group We-G sessions. Session 4 predicted a bringer of bright stones. We said, "Pointed in the direction of sitters is a bringer of bright stones. This bearer has power to unlock closed doors. Open door to new house. Now slammed shut will be door that permitted frivolous activity and waste of electric energy. Bearer has misguided notion of personal direction, but no matter to sitters. Bearer has things necessary to do. Interfere not. In personal matters, each has his chance. Each must mind his own opportunities. Bearer of bright stones has subsidiary followers, balances." Session 5 brought forth further assertions and advice. Then in Session 6, on 5 October 1962, John asked, "What of the tarot? It seems to be drawing me again." We responded, "Follow its depths. Enter its mystery. Do not ever be frivolous with it. Do not ever expose it to the profane. You cannot err with it." In Session 7, we announced, "And now to the tarot. Spell out in numbers words of meaning. Centre for a moment." The group paused and centred. 1, 2, 9, 5, 3, 1, 22, 17, 8. And Nadine asked, "What alphabet are you going by? One of the Mediterranean ones?" And we responds, "It is older than that you must go. Save this with others to come. Place them apart. Together a story will be told in this fashion. Its reason will be clear. School is in session. The tarot speaks." John asked, "Should one do mandalas with the tarot?" We responds, "When a sound proceeds, you should heed its beckoning and set into action that force for that now. A special understanding has been recalled, a special work results. Forgotten will be politics and niceties. Truth in its blunt beauty will issue to enrich the hearers." And John says, but how will we know the card's true meaning? We responds, revisions. If an understanding is absolutely in error, it will be revised. However, there will be no revisions needed if what you know is called forth. Nadine asks, are the cards numbered correctly? And we respond, no. Nadine says, many changes? We respond, yes. John says, can we get them in the correct order, at least before beginning? We respond, yes, slowly, because of the nature of things. What we are dealing with is the essence of ultimate force. Caution is required. We are not confident of the time factor and will stop when we must. This you will understand. Proceed. John then asks, what of the fool? We responds, there is no fool. He is the nameless one. The nameless one is described as the resolver and container of all from the beginning, whose number is 22 and whose letter is T. There is no visual description given. Later in the same section, although this is the nameless one as painted later, although later in the same session we announced that the hanged man was better described as the hanging man, whose function was redemption and whose letter was S, but again there was no visual description. Towards the end of the session, Nadine asked a question of clarification regarding an earlier answer given by we. There was no response made to the question. Instead, an intense green light circled John's and Rom's hands on the table. The group sat in silence and watched the mysterious green light go around and around before we responded. A song is sung on this evening's wind. Its melody can be heard. Its measure will be felt. Feel it ere dawn breaks. To you movers, thanks. Spread the song. Join the chorus. The first visual descriptions of the revised tarot came in session 8 on 27 October 1962. At this time in the world, the US and the Soviet Union were at loggerheads over the build-up of Soviet missiles in Cuba in response to the build-up of US missiles threatening Russia from Turkey. Dean, who followed current affairs closely, was somewhat agitated. And once again quoting, I'm actually quoting from this book, The Word of One, which is a transcript of the Ouija board sessions. Just incidentally, this one I bought off the internet and it's inscribed by Rosalind and it says, "With love it is here." Rosalind Sharp. So I'm reciting from this, which I've put into my manuscript, but anyway. But as the session opened, he, Dean, was feeling restless and even irritable. He kept wandering around the room as though oblivious of the lighted candles, the fire in the fireplace, and the incense Nadine had lighted. He had other things on his mind other than the coming Ouija board session. As John and Rom sat on the Davenport in front of the fireplace, with the paper Ouija board on a drawing board between them, and Nadine sat with her notebook and pencil poised, waiting, wearing, as usual, her white dress from Guatemala and her plastic pendant containing a scarab, Dean's wandering around seemed almost a deliberate interruption. At length, John said lightly, "We will wait till Lady Godiva gets on her horse," by which he was referring to the statement made by the board, "Return to that naked state of yore," also to the statement, "Ye have been given needed strength to do." The session proceeded, with breaks to discuss Cuba and Russia, after asking we and being told Russia was not an enemy. It was a lengthy session, with Rosalind again being mentioned, and the board saying that she should be here. Once again, advice, assertions, parables, tales, and poetry came through the board before it invited discussion on any one card. John asked, "What of the High Priestess?" and was told the revised name is Mother. John asked question after question, and gradually a full picture was built up. And this is the Mother card as painted by John. John painted an early version of the Mother card, which he gave to Nadine. Ever keen to proceed, John asked for more information regarding the Nameless One and the Hanging Man, both of which had been mentioned by name, only in name, but he was rebuffed by the board, with we responding later. In session 9, we issued an invitation to the group. Place a card on the table and we shall see what we shall see. John asked about the Nameless One and interrogates we until the information comes. Having a full picture of the Nameless One, John then asks, "What of the Hanging Man? Can we get a description now?" We responds, "Timing leaves nothing hanging, not even the hanging man. Patience, O lion. You have been told the import of a slow pace. The mother creating period has made this clearer. Clearer we cannot be. We appreciate your attention this night. Journey on now." John had recently painted a new version of the Mother card and now set about painting the Nameless One. By the time of the next session, both paintings were hanging on the wall of the living room at Amaranthus. Amaranthus was the name of John's house. The group thought that his cat dog looked rather odd, but it still conveyed the idea. That's a little half dog, half cat there. Session 10 brought forth more parables, tales, poetry, assertions, and advice before we interrogated John. We. "Ask that question, John. Your question." John responds, "About the stolen object?" We responds, "That is not the subject. The question, John, please ask." John asks, "Is Andre's arrival connected with the tarot? Did you bring him here?" We responds, "Yes, he was sent here. He is the bringer mentioned before." John says, "What bringer? Please remind me." We responds, "Not necessary. The point is being missed." John says, "What force does Andre carry? Is it a new and different force?" Central, says we, central, into the matter has leapt mind, which we love, but not as much as you. John says, "Is it because of reincarnation that I feel so close to Andre? What is the connection?" We says, "Child, father, mother, friend. These are the beads on the chain. There are other beads. Together they repeat and repeat." Now, Andre, who was a gifted poet, had recently visited at Amaranthus from San Francisco, bringing new friend Mitchell Chanellis. Hi, Mitch. Andre was among those, including John and Alice, who had greeted Barpak when he arrived in San Francisco 5 years earlier. Mitch and Andre had met at the Anxious Asp in North Beach some months earlier. The Anxious Asp, where the restrooms were papered with pages from the Kinsey Report, was a bohemian/lesbian bar owned and opened by Arlene Arbuckle in 1958. It was one of the many lesbian pickup joints that emerged in San Francisco from the late 1940s. Andre had travelled from Texas to North Beach, where he became friends with Janis Joplin, who also frequented the Anxious Asp. Mitch recalls that John was quite smitten with Andre. Rosalind, meanwhile, was having a series of difficulties. There were financial problems, fruitless job hunting, housing and car breakdowns, hassles, etc. And John asked why it was so. The answer was to a personal question, but it was given in a universal and relatable way. Such parables and so on formed the basis of the doctrine of one consciousness as it gradually unfolded during the ongoing Ouija sessions. Wee was then asked to describe the hanging man, and the description was given. Here we have the hanging man. In session 11, again at John's urging, a new book was revealed by Wee, but only in name, The Virgin. John asked, "May we continue with the tarot?" Wee responds, "You may prepare for another book." John said, "Will you give us the card most helpful to us at this time?" Wee responds, "Well said, The Virgin." John said, "Is this the name of the book?" Wee said, "Yes, the preparation period is now. The book is to be read later." And in this same session, John was given more information regarding the hanging man. And the next session, session 12, was where Rosalind finally arranged for a babysitter and was able to attend the session. But that's where we're going to leave it for today. So thank you very much for watching. This is the time of telling.